welcome back to the Foreign Report, your weekly foreign policy show that gives you the gory details of geopolitics with hopefully some laughs along the way. I'm Seena Ghaznavi, your foreign policy curious host, and with us is our guest host, comedian, director, Columbia Journalism School grad, and freshly shaven face to a mustache
more beard, baby,
and a little soul patch.
I need to make it clear in this Iranian conflict, whose side am I on?
Exactly.
Mustache for America.
I want people out there to know you can make a difference. You can make your voice heard, and you can have an impact.
I want to thank my sponsors, Seena Ghaznavi.
Yep.
Telling me that my beard was stupid. I want to thank him for inspiring people in the Spotify comments to say, Travis, shave your beard. I want to thank the people in the comments who say I'm hot, but please still shave that beard.
Yeah. See?
Shut up.
See?
It feels great. Honestly, it was getting too hot. It's getting too hot.
Oh, really? Beard. Yep. This 8 inches of neck beard was increasing your body temp a little bit?
I don't know how these clerics do it.
A righteous dedication to, a fanatical flavor of Islam, I think.
Thank you.
Travis, we got a big show today. The entire show is going to be on the Diddy verdict.
Oh,
100%.
Right. Finally,
so I hope you're ready.
The foreign implications of the Diddy verdict.
Shockwaves throughout the world. Shockwaves.
I've been wondering what's going to happen.
I heard the Russia-Ukraine war actually stopped to watch the verdict come in. It is all, they put down their arms and they said, what do you mean no RICO?
It was like the Christmas truce of 1914. Everyone just said, we got to turn on the TV, pop some drinks. Diddy's innocent.
Yeah.
Oof, we better get back to fighting soon.
Although BB kept bombing, so he didn't stop.
Okay,
Anyways.
well, yeah, that's what he does. That's what BB do.
But on the show today, we're going to talk about the Abraham Accords, the opposite end of the Diddy spectrum, if you will, that Syria may be joining. And we're going to get into who is involved with that. What are these Abraham Accords? So stick around for that. We also have updates on Abrego Garcia, Mahmoud Khalil, and the Russia-Ukraine war. There's a quick story from The Guardian that blew me away. I don't remember who sent it to me, but if you did, thank you. And we'll finish up with some Vance Corner.
Oof, he's still the worst.
He's okay. We don't need to do it anymore.
We've covered it.
So if you don't know about the Abraham Accords, it's okay. We'll explain that here. But you'll want to know why Bibi Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, may be shaking hands with a former ISIS and Al-Qaeda leader. The result could reshape America's role in the Middle East for years to come, which impacts you because our money goes to all of these people. So let's talk about the Abraham Accords and potentially Syria joining it.
All right. Just in time for me to shave my Abrahamic beard. Let's talk God. Abraham Accords.
Thank God. So I don't know if people remember, but back in Trump 1.0 or Trump 1 or whatever we tried to forget, and we thought that would be the end, but it wasn't. Jared Kushner was like the point person on trying to normalize relations with Arab countries and Israel. Now, why? Because they wanted to establish diplomatic relations between Israel and these Arab countries. They wanted to foster economic cooperation. And I think most importantly, the security collaboration that could happen between Arab countries and Israel would primarily be a pushback against Iran's influence in the region. Remember the axis of resistance that the Islamic Republic has. Hezbollah, Hamas, not so much, but Hamas, the Houthi rebels, and Syria as well. That was an important one because they used them as well. So those are all kind of beat now. And so Syria has fallen. Hezbollah is really degraded. Hamas is really degraded. Houthi rebels are still at it.
But Houthis are still at it.
They're still popping off. And frankly, the administration went after them for like a month, and then they had to stop because it's like, we're just burning money. And Trump knew he was going to be entering a indefinite quagmire because for every dollar we spend, the Houthi rebels spend like 0.001 pennies.
Wow.
So it's not a good fight for us to be involved in.
Right. Whose house? Houthi's house.
So what countries have signed on to the Abraham Accords in 2020. The UAE, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Morocco. Sudan signed on, but it's like they are a signatory technically, but they did not complete the normalization stuff that is part of the being a signatory with Israel in the Abraham Accords. You can imagine they've been a little tied up with a civil war and a genocide over there in Sudan.
Yeah, I was like, last time I looked at a map, there's like 2 Sudans.
Yeah. So we are going to cover, don't worry, we are going to cover Sudan. We've been looking for a good Sudanese or Sudan expert. If you know one, please send it our way. We've been putting out feelers and stuff like that. So we're trying to do it because it's not a space that we know a ton about. And I want to make sure that when we do it, we give you guys a really good episode on it. If you also remember, Saudi Arabia was about to sign the Abraham Accords, not maybe about to sign, but about to really engage in actual normalization talks with Israel. But then Hamas decided to go ahead and do the October 7th attacks, which, hindsight 2020, may not have been the best move. But who knows? I guess differing minds can disagree on whether or not that move was a good move or not strategically for Hamas. And I think it's important to note that, yes, the Islamic Republic trains and equips Hamas, but they technically, from everything I'm read, did not know about October 7th, but they are benefiting inherently at that time. But at the same time, Hamas did that, right? Because they thought everyone was going to join in the fight. But I think the Islamic Republic was clear in being unmasked that they don't really care about the Palestinian question.
Oof.
They just care about themselves. And we're seeing that again. Who else has diplomatic or peace treaties with Israel? Egypt and Jordan from 1979 and 1994, respectively. Okay, so those are the countries that are either partially in or totally into the Abraham Accords or just have diplomatic relations and peace deals with Israel. So who is joining it now and why? Syria. Valid question. So Syria is the big news right now because who is running Syria?
Who is running Syria right now?
Who is? It's
who
not,
isn't?
Well, I'll tell you who isn't. It's the Assad regime.
They're out.
They're out. I mean, the Assad regime was brutal. So brutal. I mean, like, levels of magnitude that it would, like, take your breath away. Now, the rebel groups, a former Al-Qaeda and al-Nusra Front from ISIS, militant, turned mature statesman, Ahmed Al-Sharaa, is running the country. Okay? So
Who is this gentleman?
Who is this gentleman? So let's talk about, and if you've been with us since the beginning, we did cover this a little bit, but I wanted to bring it up because I think the characters at play here are really important. And so I want you guys to know, it's when we talk about Syria, like who is Syria, right? It's this guy now. He's running everything. And this is why does he want to do this is a big question. Because if you think about what's been happening in Syria over the last, 15 years, it's a brutal civil war. They've had invasions by foreign influence, whether it was like Russia or ISIS or the Islamic Republic in there. So much was happening. And then, of course, as Al-Sharaa came in with his group, they also blew up a bunch of stuff. So they need money. Syria needs to rebuild.
Okay.
And so the only way to do that is to get some sanctions relief. And so that is where we're at right now, is President Trump just gave Syria sanctions relief because that stemmed from the Assad regime. Right before he did his Arab trip, he kind of announced that he was going to relax sanctions on Al-Sharaa. And if you remember when we covered him, he was a designated terrorist by the United States. There was like a $10 million bounty on his head. And then they've now lifted that. His group was also defined as a terrorist group. But now
he's running a country.
He is running a country. Today, President Donald J. Trump, this is from the fact sheet from the White House, which is almost oxymoronic, isn't it? Donald Trump signed a historic EO terminating Syria's sanctions program to support the country's path to stability and peace. So they removed the sanctions that were on the Assad regime and his associates. And so those were all linked to human rights abuse, drug trafficking, chemical weapons, ISIS affiliates, and Iranian proxies, right? And so now they're reevaluating whether or not they want to keep him totally on it, but he's being taken off of it. His group, Tahrir al-Sham, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, was a foreign terrorist organization. But in this order, he has directed the Secretary of State to review that, which basically means he's going to be coming off of that when you're in review. And so there's kind of like this sense of, okay, if you are behaving, we will fully do this. But right now, a bunch of capital lines are open for Syria to rebuild. My big thing here, folks, is that there's going to be a Trump Tower in Damascus. And I think that's important.
Oh, that's the real deal that he's
That's
after.
the real deal. I mean,
That's the art of the deal, baby.
That is the art of the deal. So I just want to talk about Al-Sharaa here. Back when he had completed his, I guess a revolution or the fall, right after the fall of Assad, he did an interview with CNN. And I'd like to play a couple clips from that and do that. So first, he talks about terrorism and how it's defined. And I think it's really interesting to hear him talk about how he, literally a former terrorist, defines terrorism. And it's, the definition may shock you.
I define a terrorist as someone who intentionally kills civilians, harms innocents, or displaces people. If we're being honest, many of the wars waged by major powers in Arab, Muslim, and even non-Muslim countries have involved the deliberate killing of thousands, the destruction of homes, and the displacement of millions. Even the regime itself is guilty of such actions.
But the US and others would say is that you were parts of groups that did exactly that.
Personally, I have not done these things.
Hey, it wasn't
the situation must be understood in its historical context.
So you didn't do. You could just say you didn't do that. Also, I gotta say, love his beard. Great beard of that guy. Makes me want to grow one. Maybe I will.
Yeah, you could join his, his little armed guards. A little Travis.
Oh boy. That'll be the day.
Isn't that interesting, though, the way he defines terrorism and like what that subtle jab is to the United States, to basically Israel, any other country that's been in any sort of foreign entanglement? You're basically calling them out as terrorists as well, because that's part of almost any war. So if you redefine terrorism, which is almost Trumpian in a way, you just redefine the word,
right?
Then all of a sudden everyone's a terrorist. So I thought that was interesting. And then there's this whole thing of, right, we have this guy that clearly was in Al-Qaeda that, of course, didn't do anything bad, but he was in Al-Qaeda, which I think it's kind of funny, though. Would you think he was like, when they were like torturing someone, he was like, guys, can we chill? I don't want to be involved. You know what? I'm going to walk out of the room.
Right.
And I don't want to be involved. You guys do your thing.
Define Al-Qaeda and define the word in. Like, am I really in it? I think I'm like around it. I think they're around me, really. I seem to be their leader, but am I? What's a leader?
What does the word is mean?
Right. It's the Clinton defense from 1988.
Yeah. So let's play this other clip. And this is where I think it's really interesting. And you're seeing the progression now from terrorist leader to mature statesman leader, man. So let's play the other clip now.
I say to people, don't judge by words, but by actions. I believe the reality speaks for itself.
Listening to you speaking, you've gone through quite the transformation. Once an Al-Qaeda leader, your group has had affiliations with Al-Qaeda, with ISIS, and now you are projecting this image of a moderate leader and a moderate group. What is HTS right now?
Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is one of the factions in the region, just like all the others. Now we're talking about a larger project. We're talking about building Syria. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is merely one detail of this dialogue, and it may dissolve at any time. It's not an end in itself, but a means to perform a task confronting this regime. Once that task is complete, it will transition to a state of governance, institutions, and so on. I believe that everyone in life goes through phases and experiences, and these experiences naturally increase a person's awareness.
So are those days behind you?
Sometimes it's essential to adjust to reality, and because someone who rigidly clings to certain ideas and principles without flexibility cannot effectively lead societies or navigate complex conflicts like the one happening in Syria.
People listening to this are going to wonder why they should believe you. You are still a specially designated global terrorist by the United States with a $10 million bounty on your head. Your group is a prescribed terrorist organization by the United States, by the UN, by the EU, and others.
I say to people, don't judge by words, but by actions. I believe the reality speaks for itself.
Yeah. So,
Mind-blowing.
isn't it? Isn't it wild to
Was
hear?
that Diddy's lawyer? 'Cause he did a great job just redefining everything.
I think what's also incredible is that he definitely got coached. This man did not go from like the trenches of, rebel tactical warfare
Right.
to pristine talking points without a PR firm or some sort of branding agency. There is zero chance. I don't know this for a fact, but I should probably Google it. But someone else can. I'm telling you, this man has 100% been coached. And that is
Yes.
it. That is such a solid answer to that question. I used to be bad, but then I sat and did some ayahuasca ceremonies, and now I'm in a different phase of my life.
Right, yeah, different phases in life. I was a bit of a terrorist in college, but I was
Yeah.
a terrorist phase.
Who wasn't?
That doesn't define me.
Yeah.
Freshman year, wild times.
Wild times. So this is this leader now. And of course, that sends a signal to the Gulf countries, especially Saudi Arabia, who's kind of like the big brother of all the Gulf countries.
Yeah.
And they've been pushing, along with the UAE, normalization with Israel because they know if Syria is stable, especially way more than it was under Assad, that's good for them because Assad was aligned with the Islamic Republic of Iran. Now that he's in power, Iran doesn't have an ally in Syria. They're now a regional rival. And so now Al-Sharaa has to figure out, okay, how do I now defend myself? I'm a burgeoning new country, and I have to defend this country now. It's one thing to level it and take power, but then you've got to hold the power, and you've got to govern. So normalization doesn't just happen, Travis, by shaving your neck beard.
What? You're telling me my rebel phase isn't over yet?
No.
You grow back.
But you got to do more. It's more than just, sitting for tea. The big deal points, what that Al-Sharaa has even said, it's like we'll do it under the right conditions. And for Israel, the big deal points are going to be the Golan Heights. And they've been occupied by Israel since 1967. And Israel said that it could be performance-based, where the Golan Heights could go back to Syria, like how the Sinai Peninsula went back to Egypt after they normalized relations. But that Al-Sharaa would have to disband a lot of these jihadi groups and ensure that there's protections for minorities. And so that is a huge, huge thing because that's contested territory for years now. And so being able to use that as leverage is huge for Al-Sharaa. What that also means is that Israel could help Syria with defense against Islamic Republic influence.
Oh.
So all these guys, and how does this impact what are the geopolitical consequences of all of this, right? And there's a couple things. First, Russia. If you remember, I guess I don't even know if this episode is live anymore, but Russia has a very important port in Syria that they've been using to stage attacks against Ukraine. So if they normalize with the Arab countries and they normalize with Israel, then Russia's influence goes down. The Islamic Republic's of Iran interest and influence goes down, and they align themselves more with the Gulf countries in that way. Does that make sense?
It does, and it does remind me also from Trump's first administration when he bombed an airfield in Syria that had Russian planes. But he had called Vladimir Putin before he did that, and it was like, "Yeah, we're gonna be bombing this airfield."
That's a really good point because Russia provided Assad a lot of support. And so that could be fundamentally changing now. And so remember, again, back to that axis of resistance. All of this devalues the Islamic Republic's axis of resistance. So if there's more normalization, I would hope, and I say this, as jaded as I am, hope that this could provide the Gulf countries more leverage for Israel to stop the constant bombing of the Gaza Strip, which has not let up. And just here we are, July 2nd, recording this episode. I think it was yesterday or the day before, the IDF bombed a cafe that was used by a lot of journalists on the coast of Gaza. And I'm sure Israel's going to say that there was a bunch of Hamas terrorists there. But when they did drop the bomb there, I'm sorry to say this, there was a children's party happening at the time. And that I found that out from Dropsite News, by the way. And so there's a lot of insanity happening still, and hopefully that could provide some pressure. So I guess the question here now is, why does this matter to Americans? And why should we care about this?
Please.
Because no matter what the president says, we as a country are still involved in the Middle East. These countries buy our weapons. They get our aid. They have economic ties with us. They invest in our country, right? If you live in a major metropolitan area and you see buildings with a bunch of vacant apartments and stuff like that, could be a lot of foreign countries or foreign sovereign wealth funds that are just parking money in American real estate. That happens quite a bit in New York City and other places.
Wow.
And look out. Again, Trump Tower, Damascus. Again, I don't like to make predictions. I've been pretty wrong about a lot of, but I'm pretty sure.
You've also been way too right sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah, it's a little scary. But I think this one is definitely going to happen. So, again, watch this space. If Syria joins officially, this is going to be a huge change in the dynamic of how things work, and we're going to see more reshuffling of power dynamics there. And again, it's July 2nd. I hope Israel does not bomb Iran. I've been reading reports about that over the next few days. So we'll see.
You have to stop saying things because you just end up being right.
I know. Well, sometimes I'm wrong too. It's like insane. Because I don't think I think the uranium wasn't there. I think they don't think they got it, and I think Bibi's going to try to get it, and I think that's going to mean more bombs. Anyways, Travis, any questions? Was that a lot? I feel like I packed a lot in there.
It's a lot. I guess my final question would be, I mean, you are very good at predicting the future, but you were saying if Syria joins, this is basically another move in the Middle East that counters whatever Iran is up to.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the big thing because, one of the reasons that the Islamic Republic fired those missiles at the American base, the Al Udeid base in Qatar, was to send a signal to the Gulf countries that said, we can go after you as well if you want to be involved in this, if you're going to back America. Of course, they called the Qataris and were like, hey, we're going to bomb this place. But they wanted to send that message. Remember, every action is a form of communication as well in times like this. And so that is something to really keep in mind is like, what were they saying? And the Gulf countries are like, man, we don't want to do this. They're very transactional. They really want to make money. And so they are going to, everyone's putting aside human rights abuses. Everyone's putting aside those things that are just, that tear up your soul for the almighty dollar. That's what it comes down to.
Oof.
Oh my God. Well, if you got any questions, send us an email, theforeignreportlpn@gmail.com. I'd love to just hear from you guys if that made sense, if you want to hear more about it. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we can cover our other stories from Russia to Abrego Garcia to Mahmoud Khalil. I'm Seena Ghaznavi. This is The Foreign Report for Travis Irvine. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after these programmatic ads. Welcome back to The Foreign Report. I'm Seena Ghaznavi, your foreign policy curious host. With us in the virtual studio is Travis Irvine, Columbia Journalism School grad. Woo, doggy. That was a lot on the Abraham Accords.
That's a lot, but it's, this is important stuff. There's a lot of countries over there, and I bet you most Americans can't even find Syria on a map. So.
Oh, man. There was an incredible, let me see if I can, people cannot find Iran on map. I posted this on my socials. There was this incredible image. I think it was the BBC. Where is this image? And people couldn't find, people were saying that that Iran was like in the Indian Ocean or in Australia. Travis, I'm so happy you brought that up. This is, God, this is from Facebook. This is this is going around.
Oh, this is a hell of a visual. Can you describe this to our audience?
This is a map of the world, and the yellow dots are all over the place of people saying this is where Iran is. 23% of everyone polled got it correct, but the ones that were wrong were all over the place. You have
like
a ton
all over the map, literally.
Yeah, not just the Middle East. There was a ton, and there's a cluster in the Middle East, which sure I get. If you think it's India, if you think it's Iraq, if you think it's Syria or whatever.
Those start to go into the Mediterranean, into Europe?
They think it's in Europe. They think it's in Russia. They think it's in all over Africa, which, people have said. People very, very often people confuse me for an African. I get that a lot. The best ones, though, the ones that are in the middle of the ocean and Australia. Now, I don't know how to feel about the Australia one.
Right.
And also China. We're in China. There's dots all over the place. So.
Wow. Well, they call us Great Satan. We might as well call them Tasmanian devils. Get them down there. Put them around Australia. Well, that's bonkers. But that is why I'm grateful for your education, your edutainment, sir, on this show.
Thank you. Speaking of crazy stuff happening in Russia and Ukraine, that war still going on, but I think something to keep in mind is that Russia's always looking for an angle to kind of create some sort of asymmetric warfare, just like Ukraine just did with their drone strikes that were brilliantly placed. No lives were lost in that, by the way, which I think is really important to keep harping on and going back to. But look at this article from The Guardian. This is insane. Russia has long been covertly recruiting and paying Ukrainians, often young and desperate for money, to perform acts of arson and sabotage. But The Guardian is reporting that they have recently upped the stakes to recruiting unwitting bombers and suicide bombers. In a recent story, they profiled a 19-year-old Ukrainian who answered a job posting on a Telegram message board. The job offered $1,000 to spray paint a police station. Okay, that makes sense. But when the man collected what he thought would be paint, it was a homemade bomb.
Oh, no.
In this particular case, the man quickly went to a police station and the bomb did not go off. Can you imagine? He's like running in. Excuse me! It's just like holding this bomb. And they're like, what are you doing? It's like, it's a bomb. I don't know what to do with it. You take it. It's like, I don't want to take it. You take it. It's like, I was supposed to do something. It's going to blow up. Others, although, have not been so lucky. Since 2024, Ukrainian intelligence claims that it had detained more than 700 people in connection with these attacks and attempted attacks. European intelligence officials are concerned the Russians may use this tactic in other locations eventually. One source was quoted, Ukraine is the testing ground for Russia conventional and hybrid warfare. Look at cyber attacks, look at arson attacks, look at the sabotage on railways. They test things here and then they do it in Western countries. This is insane. I was
bonkers.
Yeah, it is just crazy that this is happening. So I don't know. I mean, how do you compete against that? You've got a war-ravaged country. People need to work, and they're getting offered. This is like spray paint. This is a small town crime. It's like a misdemeanor. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then it blows up.
Oof. That's a mean trick. I'm going to say that. I think it's a mean trick.
Don't go out on a limb or anything. Yeah, I agree.
This is a mean trick. My nephews are starting to spray paint stuff out in Vegas, and I'm like, no, that's bad. But I think, honestly, this would be a good way to get my nephews to stop spray painting stuff. Be like, it could be a bomb.
It could be a bomb.
Russian bomb, you idiot. Now you're dead. Now what?
Also, did you just narc on your nephews?
He got busted already.
Oh, man.
I only know about it because my brother and his wife found out about it.
Oh, he got busted. What is the punishment for spray paint? Is it a ticket?
Oh, your parents yelling at you, and then you got to go paint over it, I think.
Oh, yeah, you got man.
It depends on who catches you. If the Russians catch you, they're going to make you a bomber now.
That's so crazy.
That's
it
beyond
reminds
guerrilla warfare.
It reminds me of, I don't know if you, I didn't read the entire 9/11 Commission report, but I remember.
I have a copy here if you want it.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
I'll bring it to you. I'm sure it'll look really cool with me flying with it.
Yeah. Don't even put it in a camera. Just hold it while you go through security.
Hello. Have you seen my book?
Just some casual reading. But the big thing from it was that what was the biggest failure? It was a failure of imagination. They weren't able to imagine that someone would do something like this, like 9/11. And I think this feels like one of those things where who could imagine that level of depravity and to do something like that?
Yeah.
And here we are.
War really brings out the creatives.
The creativity.
Picture this. Mustard gas.
Here are my creativity dice. I'm going to roll them. Oh, look at that. Spray paint bombs. There we go. Perfect.
Right.
Okay, so Abrego Garcia. We've got some developments that have happened. Right. In the ongoing and increasingly Kafka-esque story of Abrego Garcia, this will make no sense, but please follow me here.
Catch us up to speed, please.
If you remember, the man mistakenly and illegally renditioned to a notoriously brutal gulag in El Salvador was Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who had, by the way, a no deportation order, right? A no deportation order because Homeland Security had done a check on him and said he's okay to stay in the country. He was doing all of his checks. He was going into Homeland Security, doing his checks. Everything's fine. And then they rounded him up and sent him to El Salvador. The Trump administration, under pressure from the courts, multiple courts, by the way, and after much delay, begrudgingly brought him back to the U.S., where they have since charged him with not human trafficking, human smuggling. And there's an important distinction there because trafficking, there's no consent. Smuggling, there is consent. So he agreed, or they're allegedly saying that the people that he smuggled agreed to be smuggled into America. After a hearing in which the government failed to present enough evidence to keep him detained until his trial, instead of actually being released and returned to his family in Maryland as the judge ordered, his own lawyers asked the judge to keep Abrego Garcia in jail to ensure he is not again deported before he has his day in court. Okay? You got a lawyer who's like, you know what? The safest place is next to, the Ku Klux Klan gang in prison.
Oh, my God. So he's safer in prison so he doesn't get sent to a foreign worse prison.
I'll tell you what, don't send him to the Sherman Oaks playground here in the Valley in Los Angeles because ICE is over there pulling nannies right out of the playground.
Oh, my gosh.
And they're waiting for the parents to come pick up the kids. This is where we're at now. This is where we're at. His lawyers noted that the, quote, irony of this request is not lost on anyone. Jesus. Next hearing is scheduled for July 13th. How do we... Prison is more safe than a public street.
This is like...
Definitely safer than a Home Depot.
This is... Because sometimes they do this with, like, big drug dealers, right? They're like, if you get let out of custody at all, you could get popped. Or mafia guys, right? Like a whistleblower for the mafia.
Yeah.
If we let him walk free, he could get popped by the mafia. We're talking about a man who's wrongfully charged, and his own lawyer is worried that if he gets set free, just waiting for his next court date, he could get popped by the same government that charged him in the first place.
He could get kidnapped and renditioned. And then it's even to your point, like if you're a criminal and there's like a drug-related offense or like a drug war or something like that or like a gang war, the gangs could get you in prison.
Yes.
They could get someone in there and they could get you in prison. But the government doesn't, failure of imagination. Here we go. The government could probably still do something if they wanted to. They are very creative when it comes to this kind of stuff.
People would argue Jeffrey Epstein. Look at what happened to him.
I don't know. Do you think someone did it, or do you think he did it himself?
I just trust the good word of Kash Patel and Dan Bungagingo, whatever his name is. They've never been wrong.
I have a theory on that, at least, and this is based in nothing other than a feeling. And this is my theory.
You keep being right, so you be careful with what you're about to say.
I think they got these security guards to like walk away.
Sleep. Close your eyes.
Close your eyes.
Snore a little bit.
You're sleeping.
All right, you just stay right there.
Someone walks into where his jail cell is and just says, "Hello, Jeffrey." Jeffrey sees this person and kills himself.
Ooh.
Because the mere image of this person where he's like, "You know what you need to do." And he's like, "No, okay."
All right.
I don't know. All right.
I'll kill myself.
I'll hang myself.
So
I don't know.
So I feel like that assisted suicide is what you're saying.
I feel like I probably saw that in a movie, and that's why I think that. So there you go. That's where. That's why I don't do a show about Jeffrey Epstein
on true crime or anything.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
we know our lane.
Fraud, and foreign policy. That's me. Okay.
In a lot of ways, they're the same things.
They are. Okay. Other people that have been renditioned by our government. In another story, Mahmoud Khalil, who was held at a detention center in Louisiana for 3 months, missed the birth of his son while in custody.
And he was the one who was nabbed from my alma mater, right?
From Columbia, yeah.
Columbia University.
For saying things that hurt people's feelings.
Oh, okay.
In an interview, he said, quote, "There's nothing in this world that would compensate me for the time I lost with my family and witnessing the birth of my child." So remember, he was a green card holder that was never formally charged with a crime. Instead, the administration detained him and is still, by the way, seeking to deport him by invoking I believe it was the Aliens Act, and it was a rarely used law where it gave the Secretary of State all this authority to just say, okay, this person is potentially a threat to the country. We're going to take away his green card and deport him without due process, by the way. A judge has ruled now that the government's use of that law is likely to be unconstitutional, but they're continuing to move forward with the deportation case. So what do we do with that? That's another. It's insane. Oh my God. Please help me, God. He was on stage with Mamdani, and he's like doing the rounds now. And you know what's funny is that no one needed to even know who this guy was. Like, sure. He could have just been another protester that you just let do their thing. But now you made him a celebrity. Now you gave him a platform. Now you made him even more powerful. The very thing that you didn't want to have happen,
right,
you now made happen. You gave him so much more credibility. You've brought new people in. Yeah, it's almost like these people don't know what the F they're doing.
Oh, did you get that? Do you understand that? Yeah, it's almost like their foreign policy and their immigration policy are very similar, right? It's like we're gonna go into Iran, and then whatever we do there, we screw that up, and then it gives them way more credibility and motivation than they had before. And then we take these people who we accuse of whatever immigration crimes. I've lost track of who's being charged with what and everything. And it's same deal, like you just said. It's like they didn't even do anything, but now you've made them more powerful.
In the case of Abrego Garcia, at least, the judge was like a Trump appointee. These are like very conservative judges in these cases that are ruling in favor of these folks.
Yes.
And so it's like such a mess. So again, they gave Mahmoud Khalil a career now. He's going to write a book. He's probably going to become a millionaire. And by the way, he's going to become a millionaire that will benefit from this tax bill. So
that works out. They're just creating millionaires. Don't you get it, Seena? We need to go. I got to go back to Colombia. I got to say some stuff that people don't like. I got to get arrested. And then
this is your ticket.
Wife. This is my ticket. I got to find a wife who's already pregnant, and then she has the baby while I'm in jail.
And if I may, grow the neck beard back. If you're
You
gonna do
got
that.
it, Seena. By popular demand, it's in the Spotify comments. The beard is coming back.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about JD Vance and what is going on with him. I can't believe every week we're able to talk about this man. It is so absurd. I'm Seena Ghaznavi. This is the Foreign Report. We'll be right back with Travis Irvine and the JD Vance Corner. Welcome back to the Foreign Report. I'm Seena Ghaznavi, Travis Irvine in the virtual studio. Boom, boom, boom. It's JD Vance Corner.
Bum. You can't give him a chance. He sucks so bad because he's JD Vance. Bum. We got to have a theme song. I think that could be it.
Can someone make us a theme song for the Vance Corner? Like a nice little drop?
Yeah. Just plug it into AI about how JD Vance sucks and, it'll figure it.
JD Vance sucks. I wish AI just sounded like that and not like actual people.
I know. That would be so much more fun.
That would be more fun.
The memes, the tax bill, all of it gets plugged into the JD Vance Corner this week, Seena. Let's do a little round the grounds with our favorite / least popular vice president, everybody. So first and foremost, obviously, we're recording a show on July 2nd. This is the week of the one big, beautiful bill. Can't spell billionaires without bill. And that is exactly what this thing is doing on the domestic front of things. But anyone who hates JD Vance, add this another reason to hate JD Vance, and that is he was the deciding vote in a 50-50 split vote by the Senate. 3 Republicans joined all 47 Democrats in the Senate to vote against the one big, beautiful bill. That meant it was tied 50-50, and per our constitutional rules, the vice president, who is president of the Senate, gets to sit in and make the deciding vote. JD Vance voted for one big, beautiful bill because, Seena, hear me out.
Okay.
He's a toady for Trump who knows he has to do everything he's told to inherit the MAGA movement in 2028. He had to do this. It doesn't matter if it literally screws over his rural family members verbatim in those words. He's got to do what he's got to do for old Trump daddy. So,
Papa, well, also his uncle is Peter Thiel. So
don't forget about that.
Yeah,
and,
not
and
really,
all these guys. So that's number one reason to hate JD this week. Obviously, we're going to see what happens with the one big, beautiful bill by the end of this week. But just remember, JD played his part.
And I think it's geopolitically, like, just to talk about that bill for just 1 second here, the amount of debt that it creates and the amount of stuff that it adds to the deficit every year.
And that's what, to Rand Paul from Kentucky, to his credit, he voted against it because it added too much debt for him. He's a fiscal conservative, fiscal hawk, if you will.
And not just like a couple million. It's like 300 billion a year or something like that. It's 3 trillion over 10 years, I believe. And I saw an interview with Representative Tom Massey. He's like, I've been here for 12 years. I've seen a couple of these 10-year bills come by, and nothing happens after year 3. We just make a new one. So
that's the thing. Thomas Massey, same deal. Another fiscal conservative out of Kentucky also voted against the big, beautiful bill when it was in the House. And these votes are tight. You're looking at 51-50 in the Senate, 215-214 in the House on all the previous votes. I mean, we're going to see what happens. But like you were saying, Seena, what does it even do?
Yeah. I mean, these billionaires and, multi-millionaires need our help. Yeah. And you know what? I'm here for it. Yes. I'm here for it. Here you go.
Yes.
I want you to have a bigger wedding, Jeff Bezos. Bigger wedding.
Why rent one city in Italy when you can have all of Italy?
Yeah. Why? Thank you. And don't at me. We need to support these wealthy people. They need our support. They are job creators.
I sent you that article from The Guardian that the billionaires are now $6 trillion richer. And it's enough money, according to the charity who reported on this, to cure global poverty 22 times over.
Yeah. They need our help and support and love. And you know what? You're welcome. And I'm sure everyone will be getting a thank you card delivered via Amazon Prime for
Yes.
this big wedding that he just
Yes. There's only 3,000 billionaires in the world, Seena. They are the minority. It's hard. It's hard to be the minority.
We need to help them.
So let's help them out. Thank you, JD Vance, Daddy
God.
Trump, and all the Republicans, because it's only Republicans who are voting for this thing. That's on the domestic front. But don't worry. JD Vance also came back to my home state and, unfortunately, his home state as well, Ohio, over this past week. And he was praising, as you could imagine, Donald Trump's decision to bomb the Iranian nuclear sites. And he, of course, decided to talk about something called the Trump Doctrine. Have you heard of this Trump Doctrine yet, Seena?
I haven't, actually. Okay, lay it on me.
So this is how you know, like we were talking, the gentleman with the beard who was speaking earlier, who's now in charge of Syria. You just changed words around so they mean different things. As we know, as we've covered, JD Vance is very good at this as well. He said you don't want the worst people in the world to have a nuclear weapon. Of course, he's talking about the Iranians. So he's calling this tactic the Trump Doctrine. Number one, you articulate a clear American interest, and that's in this case that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Number two, you try to aggressively, diplomatically solve that problem. I don't know when that part happened, but okay. And number three, when you can't solve it diplomatically, you use overwhelming military power to solve it, and then you get the hell out of there before it ever becomes a protracted conflict. And quote, that's the Trump Doctrine. Seena, I just want to hear your thoughts on a purely reactionary basis.
None of that ever works. It's never worked. It never will work. It is not working right now. And we are in a protracted conflict that will not end.
There you go. Well, welcome to the Trump Doctrine. What's a doctrine? What does that even mean?
Yeah, there's definitely not a doctrine involved.
There's no doctrine involved in there. Also, just for funsies, JD Vance did also say that dropping that Ohio State Buckeyes trophy at the White House, which of course we played that verbatim on this show, he said it was the most embarrassing moment of his life. Which, thank God.
Getting cucked by the president is not the most embarrassing moment of his life. It's not.
There'll be more to come, but for right now, dropping a giant trophy seems to do it for
I think
him.
going from Trump is America's Hitler, as he said, to, wow, what a great guy, I want to be his running mate, is, I mean, you just can't beat that.
You can't beat that. But when you're JD Vance and you have to justify it, holding a big trophy and then showing everyone that you can't even do that, also pretty embarrassing for a guy from Middletown, Ohio. And finally, in the JD Vance roundup, this one's a fun one. Hey, Seena, you're traveling out of the country pretty soon, right?
I am. Yeah, I am. I'm going to be flying to Japan.
You got a bunch of those hilarious JD Vance memes on your phone by any chance?
Oh no, I don't. But should I?
I think you should for comedy's sake, but you probably shouldn't for your family's sake, because a tourist says that a JD Vance meme is what kept him out of the United States. Now, officials are officially denying this, but as you could imagine, in the same way the JD Vance memes have blown up on the internet over the past few months, this story of a tourist coming from Norway whose claims that he was not allowed into the country because of a hilarious, and I've seen them
because he's got a good sense of humor.
Yeah. He wasn't allowed in for doing the funniest thing ever, and that is having just a hilarious JD Vance meme on his phone. Now, here's the thing. U.S. Customs and Border Control, they deny the fact that they didn't let him in because of the meme on his phone. But the fact is that about, I believe, 1% of people actually can get their electronics searched when coming into the country. Now, this is, if you're coming to the country and Customs and Border and Immigration, they want to search your phone, guess what? If you want to get in the country, you have to let them do that. They claim that they only do it to about 1% of the people coming into the country per year. But this is where you got to be careful, Seena, because if you have any funny memes or anything else that could compromise you getting back into the country on your electronics, sir, immigration officials can search those machines.
God, I'm just going to make these people watch Paw Patrol and be like, I don't know, you got to keep watching. Maybe I could have something in there. Maybe you should just sit here and watch it. Watch the whole thing.
Just watch the whole thing. If JD Vance pops up in there, they might not let you back in, though, Seena.
Fuck, damn.
I know.
I also heard if you have global entry, you give them permission already So even if you're a U.S. citizen, you do that. So I read that and I was like, oh God. I honestly may not bring my phone. I'm flying to Japan with my family. We're gonna go visit, and we're gonna have a couple banked episodes for everybody. So some good interviews and stuff. And so stay tuned for those. But yeah, I am a little nervous about coming back into America.
They're just like, I see it says here you have a foreign policy.
It's
podcast,
very intellectual.
Sir.
It's very intellectual.
And what are you talking about? Do you love the president and the vice president on that show? You don't have a section of the show called the JD Vance Corner, do you, sir?
What am I supposed to do? Should I just say waterboard me? I'm going to be with my 2 children. I can't say anything. I can't be myself is really the problem.
The one thing I will say that the customs people said is that the Norwegian traveler had admitted that he had smoked weed at some point, and immigration is saying that's why they didn't let him in. So even then, JD Vance jokes and JD Vance memes aside, don't tell a government official ever that you have tried weed, that you enjoy weed or anything, because
I'm just gonna say
that will get you not allowed in the country.
I'm just going to tell them I'm on the same stuff Elon Musk was on. So they should just let me right in. So that should be fine.
You're going to be just fine, sir. You're going to get a job with Doge.
There we go. Here's the fast lane. The efficient lane. Travis, thank you so much for the JD Vance Corner. As always, we still have more Vance stuff every week. So we'll be coming back to that. Folks, that's the show for this week. Please send us an email, theforeignreportlpn@gmail.com. Subscribe to us on YouTube. If you like what you're seeing, subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. Do all those things. Send us a positive review on Apple Podcasts. Comment on Spotify. These are things that all help the show, the buzz of the show. The algorithm likes it when you talk about us. Share our clips. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on personally. And it is, don't follow us home, but follow us on social media. That makes sense, right?
Yes.
That makes
sense.
And
if you're the government, don't follow us
at all
to other countries.
Yeah. I'm trying to go on vacation and eat ramen, okay? Back off. I'm Seena Ghaznavi. For Travis Irvine, we'll see you next time.